Welcome to episode 1 of the Hot Lava Podcast. Kevin Acee, Padres beat writer, longtime Padres beat writer, going into my 7th week here ahead of opening day. And my boss, Union-Tribune sports editor, Jay Posner. Jay, happy to see me again?
Kevin, always. I can't believe how much I missed you while you were in the desert.
It's like I wasn't even gone. That's how quick it went. And I came back and I went to Petco Park today as we taped this on Wednesday. And there were neon bikes everywhere.
How about that? Our city changes. I was down there yesterday, though, and I will say that there's nothing like being at the ballpark. And whether you're in the field or you're in the upper deck or whatever, I will admit I do love going to baseball games more than probably any other sporting event. So I am excited about baseball being back, and we'll be here as often as we feel like doing this, maybe once a week, maybe more. Depending on your schedule, which is always busy.
Yep. And this year, we'll do it when I'm on the road, when I'm here and we get to hang out. We're just down the road from the ballpark.
Right. And you'll provide some interviews for us. We have one coming up.
Adam Cimber. And we'll get to it later, but I got to tell you, there's 2 guys on this roster that it became apparent a week or 2 ago were going to be on the roster. And look, it's my job just to cover this team, but you can't help but get caught up in Adam Cimber's story.
I'm going to guess the other guy.
Go.
Rafi Lopez.
You know me, and also it is a great story.
Right.
This kid was playing. He's 31 or something now. Rafi Lopez has played for the Cubs, the Reds, and the Blue Jays over the past 4 seasons. Okay, 1 year he didn't make it to the majors, and in 2016, his opening day at the end of April was in Bridgeport, Connecticut, for the Bridgeport Bluefins of the Atlanta League. That's not organized baseball.
League.
The Atlantic League.
Right.
Yes, the Atlantic League.
Yes. Sorry, I'm always editing.
Awesome.
Even on here, I'll be editing.
Listen, you're also the one who will keep us on topic. These are how my conversations go, and you'll be the guy to say, hey, Kevin, weren't we going to talk about this? Padres opening day, they play the Brewers. Interesting schedule this year, and we'll use the schedule to get into the roster. Padres play a 3-game series, and then most of these guys, their first Easter off since like high school.
Right.
Because of the way they did the schedule this year, starting the season early. And they said, hey, let's give some teams Easter off.
It's weird, actually, that they didn't give more teams Easter off. When I first heard the Padres were off, I thought, okay, the whole league's going to be off. And then I looked, and there's only about 6 teams that are off. Speaking of someone who has tickets to Sunday afternoon games, I'm going to miss having a game on Sunday afternoon. But I do understand why they're doing that, and I'm sure it's great for the players. And then they come back, and an old friend comes to town.
Colorado Rockies, Bud Black.
Right.
They'll play the Rockies, 4 games here, go to Houston, play 3 in Colorado. Come home, what is that, Dodgers, Giants?
I think it's Giants first. On
Giants,
Friday,
Dodgers.
Friday the 13th is the Giants for a weekend. But that's, 17 straight
17 straight days, and in that 17 days are 2 trips to Coors Field.
Which is crazy
So
schedule.
in this 17-day trip, it's not a trip, 17-day stretch, it has 2 trips in it. And this is how we'll get into the roster for the Padres. In this 17-day stretch, they play the defending champion Houston Astros. They play the Dodgers twice. They play the Rockies twice, or 3 times. No, that's not in the 17-day stretch, but in April. 3 times, twice in Coors Field. They play Arizona. These are teams that see a lot of pitches. These are teams that hit a lot of home runs. These are teams that there's a lot of offense. This Padres roster that we all get so excited about dissecting is going to change several times in April.
Well, I had a note here among my notes of things to talk about was how many roster moves will be made by the time the Padres leave town just next week, and let alone when they come back a week later after playing in Houston and Colorado, which are both, great hitters' parks. These guys could go through. I mean, the one huge concern for this team is the rotation above all else. Well, that and if anybody can get on base, but we can, since for 4 years they haven't.
These are the 2 things,
right? But if they can, if the pitching especially is a concern, having to play again in those ballparks, when everybody's not really stretched out yet. I mean, even if a starter has a good start at this point, what's he going to go 6 innings?
Yeah, the quality start might be important in April.
Yeah,
that stat.
So I think they're gonna end up adding a pitcher, even if they finish with 11. If they come out tomorrow with 11 pitchers.
They'll have, I believe it'll be 11, yes.
They'll have at least 12 by the time they probably get to Houston, and they might even end up having to go to 13 at some point if things get really crazy.
Absolutely. Now, this is what plays in where Robbie Erlin and Jordan Lyles were going to make this roster. because there's 2 long guys out of the bullpen, right? Then Dinelson Lamet gets hurt. Now I believe it will be, and here's my first chance to be wrong, making a prediction on the Hot Lava podcast presented by the Union-Tribune. Robbie Erlin, I believe, is going to be your starter on Friday, because then that allows the Padres to wait to make Tyson Ross an actual Padre again. So tomorrow, the 25-man roster that has to be announced by 8:30 a.m., I believe it is, Tyson Ross will probably not be a part of that. And then when they do go to make Tyson Ross a part of it, who goes? It's not going to be a pitcher. It's one of those second basemen probably. It's one of those extra catchers probably.
It almost has to be, right?
Yes.
I mean, I don't see where else they can go. I mean, I guess the only other option would be to get rid of one of the outfielders and use Spangenberg. I saw apparently he was taking fly balls today in left field, and he has played out there before. And I don't think he didn't embarrass himself out there. He is left-handed, which none of their other outfielders are.
I think you're right.
But you also, if you're going to go to another outfielder, you also have Franchy Cordero that you want to get up here sooner rather than later. So it's really interesting.
We're already talking about that. Franchy will be here when he's healthy, provided that he's still playing and that there's somebody to send down. I think you're right about Spangenberg, and I just think that's another good story. Good for these guys. As the Padres get better, Luis Urias is better than both those 2 guys, and they know it.
Right.
Those are the types of players that aren't long for the Padres if the Padres are who they think they are.
Well, that's the thing, and I know you've written this several times, and hopefully the people out there listening have read that. But
would that be on the Union-Tribune website?
That would be.
Okay.
That would be, Kevin. Or maybe even in the newspaper. You know, people have we do have a newspaper.
Sorry, I've been gone for 6
and
weeks.
An e-edition
That's right.
and everything that people can enjoy. But there are players that, in the past we would say, well, we'll see how this guy develops. They may not be waiting around for someone like that. And I think one of the guys, and to me, he's a fascinating story, is Hunter Renfro. Mm-hmm. What happens with Hunter Renfro? This guy has power like few others have, but he also strikes out like few others do. His on-base percentage is terrible. His defense last year wasn't as good as advertised.
Whereas people seem to kind of romanticize about it now.
Right. And so what's the level of patience when you have Manny Margot set in center and Will Myers is set in one of those places, probably right field? How many different guys are you going to have in left field? Between Cordero and Perella and then Renfro all thrown into this mix. That's not a lot of at-bats for somebody. So who ends up on the outs? I think that's something that we'll be watching throughout the season. Now,
these guys have been surprised, just because they have an idea. When I say they, I'm talking AJ Preller, the personnel department, Andy Green, but they were surprised by a few things. How both Asuaje and Spangenberg stepped up. Rafi Lopez able to keep his job. Adam Cimber, it's not like they know everything, but I'm going to say this. Kudos to Hunter Renfro, because I don't know that they thought that he would respond this spring. I know people found that hard to believe because of the 26 home runs, and he spent a month in AAA, still hit the rookie record 26 homers, and he's got that cannon out there and right. Hunter Renfro is the type of player that if the Padres are who they think they are, Hunter's going to have to bust his butt to stay on this team.
Right, and he's going to have to do that even before the Padres get to where they think they're going to get, just to be part of it.
You mentioned Franchy Cordero.
Right, and I think that you're looking at a situation where he did it in spring training, but as we know from a lot of guys, it doesn't always translate once you get into April, or I guess in this case, late March, but however it works out. So he's one guy that really he's definitely a guy that you have to watch, and I think that's going to be one story that you and Jeff Sanders and everyone else covering the team this year follows throughout the year, is what happens with this outfield where all of a sudden by signing Eric Hosmer, you created a little bit of a jam out there. But I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that is one argument for not spending the money on Hosmer, is you did have outfielders, but maybe they weren't that good. And so maybe Hosmer, Myers, Margot, and pick one are better than pick two with Margot and Myers at first. So does that make any sense? Probably
Jay,
not.
I think that it's one of the central stories because, and I think that you and I will probably, you're my boss. Jay Posner, sports editor of the Union-Tribune, and Kevin Acee, the Padres beat writer. We're on the Hot Lava podcast, the Union-Tribune. I believe my responsibility as the beat writer is not only, obviously, there's 162 games to cover here, but to tell this story. How is what this guy, let's take Hunter Renfro, how is what he has done this May What does it mean for Hunter Renfro and the Padres in the future? Here's what Luis Urias is doing. Here's what it means for the, that sort of thing. Because let's talk about 2018. People are asking me how many wins. I don't care is my answer. Because
it's right on my sheet. It's right on my sheet here. How many games will they win?
I don't think it's more than 81. I don't think it's enough that they're going into the playoffs. So this season is about looking at Hunter Renfro, Luis Perdomo, Brian Mitchell, Dinelson Lamet to a certain extent.
Brian Mitchell's another guy that, and I know I hear talk in the office from people who are like, why is this guy guaranteed a spot in the rotation? Now, I understand it because I know what they're trying to do here. They're basically saying, okay, look, we believe in you. We've seen a lot of stuff. You wrote about this. He's never had a defined role. They're going to give him a defined role, and now they're going to find out. Look, Preller's either really smart on this or he wasn't. I mean,
and now's the time to find out.
Right, and find out now, because is this guy going to be part of your road? Can you count on this guy in 2019 and 2020, or is he just going to get caught up in the wash of Eric Lauer and Joey Lucchesi and these other guys? And that's part of, again, that's another guy that I think is among the most interesting guys to watch on the team this year is Brian Mitchell. What are we going to see from this guy? He's never shown too much when he's been in the big leagues, but he's never had an opportunity like he's had now. What is he going to do with it?
And when you walk through it with him, you go, okay, I can see how that was hard. This 2-hour drive between wherever the heck it was. Where was the office? Scranton. He was out there with Michael Scott.
Exactly.
And he's got this.
He was
apartment.
Distracted. It was tough out there.
He's got this apartment that overlooks the George Washington Bridge, and he's like there. And then they send him down. And he doesn't really go to Scranton. He stays at the apartment.
Right.
But then every 15 days he's throwing 60 pitches in the minors, and then they want him to come up and be long relief in the majors. So you're right. He has never stepped up. But has he really been given the opportunity? So what was great is they said, not only the spring, you're building up to be a starter, and they haven't defined it for him. But what I believe is, even if he struggles, he's still a starter in May.
Right.
Now,
I think
we see what is Eric Lauer doing,
right,
and that sort of Cal Quantrill.
I think it's crazy to give him this opportunity and then say, well, you're not going to be a guy for the first couple, 3 months.
Got 10, 15 starts in him.
Right, and I think that's. I want to see that. I want to see what this guy can do. And you know what? It's almost like you were talking about. He's like Kevin Quackenbush that Padre fans are familiar with. Except Quackenbush at least had the same role, whether he was here or he was in El Paso. When this guy had a different role, and I'm really interested to see what happens.
And I heard this spring, again, I'm the new beat writer here. I wasn't around every day, so I asked a lot of questions. Probably, and that's going to be a lesson to me, to still be asking these quote-unquote stupid questions next year, because when you've been on a beat a while, you think you know more than you probably do. So I'm asking these questions, and you find out things, and evidently, Kevin Quackenbush did not have a good attitude about it. That's not me ripping Kevin Quackenbush. It's hard on a lot of guys, but then you go, maybe Brian Mitchell, maybe it did take a toll on him.
Right.
So I'll tell you what, to borrow a phrase from Andy Green, the curve is real. I'm no scout, another phrase you'll hear me say here a lot. I'm a guy who loves baseball, watches a lot of baseball, talks to people about baseball now more than ever. Thank you, Jay Posner, for that. But I didn't see much else, but it was spring in Arizona. So I really do look forward to these next couple months, at least, of Brian Mitchell. Same with Luis Perdomo, who I really look forward to. And I'm honestly, you can't help but meet this kid. You can't help but watch him pitch. Don't look too closely, because there's this freaky thing. Have you seen Adam Cimber on TV yet?
I don't think I have seen him pitch yet.
Adam Cimber, a career minor leaguer. I believe he's 28 years old, never been above AAA. The team told him last year, you can't get lefties out. You better figure this out. So he stayed in extended spring, and he figured it out. And we're going to hear a little bit about this from him. But when he pitches, he was a starter. And so in college, when they changed him to a reliever and he realized he needed to go out of the stretch, he wanted to develop more torque. He twists his leg around. It almost makes you sick to your stomach. I don't know that I could do it 20 years ago in terms of limberness.
Right.
But Adam Cimber, a guy who...
Well, 20 years ago, you were about his age. So
that's what I'm saying. I don't think I could do it back then. Adam Cimber is a guy in here. Jay, you're not a guy who's always been a desk jockey. You've been out in the field. You'll know how rare this is. The team actually admits they're shocked by Adam Cimber. Usually it's like, oh no, we saw this in him.
Right.
No. We had no idea Adam Cimber was going to make our team. 9 scoreless innings in the Cactus League. First against, 6-year free agents and minor leaguers. And then, hey, let's put him against the meat of the Indians order, the meat of the Giants order. And he got them out too. So he's on this team. I caught up with him today after the Padres workout at Petco Park. Here is new Padres reliever Adam Cimber. Adam, congratulations. I've already said that to you, but I'm sure a lot of people have. A year ago, you're in extended spring. No possible way do you think that you're going to be in the major leagues?
No chance. No chance, man. I was in a crossroads in my career last year at this time. I'd never had somebody tell me that I wasn't good enough to play baseball, and it really was an ego check, a reality check. I had to do some soul searching, and it's amazing what a year can do, and I'm at a loss for words, really. Yeah.
When did you find out exactly? Was it before you gave up your first run of the spring, or was it after in El Paso?
It was before. It was the day before in Arizona. Yeah.
You did exactly what they want a guy to do when they tell him, hey, you're not good enough. They want that guy to respond properly, but some don't. What was it about you, Adam, where you said, okay, this is the time where I got to figure out what they're saying?
I think that there have been different points over the course of my career where it's been sort of like do or die, and I feel like that's kind of what I take pride in, and I feel like that was another option where I could have just rolled over and said, all right, like, where's my next job? What am I going to do after baseball? But I prayed about it, and I felt like it was what I still needed to be doing, and so I just put my head down, stopped feeling sorry for myself, and got to work and just tried to figure out how to get better.
But you were really relieved that when you prayed about it, that God said, hey, keep playing baseball.
Absolutely. One of my favorite quotes from this last 2 or 3 days when I talked to my dad, and he said, it was the morning I called him and told him, he was in tears, but he's like, man, don't take this the wrong way. Like, I think you're a good pitcher and all, but from extended spring training this time last year to making an opening day roster, there's no way you do that without God. And I was like, absolutely.
All right. So now, today is really the last day of basking in it, and congratulations, because now it's big league hitters. And they kept testing you in spring. Okay, well, this guy's getting out 6-year free agents and minor leaguers. Let's put him in there against some real guys. And you kept getting guys out. Has it hit you tomorrow, dude, you are a major leaguer, and every guy you face is a major leaguer?
A little bit. I try not to look too hard at the guys in the box. Obviously it's hard to ignore when you hear the names being announced, but I think it really just hit me about 5 minutes ago when I just signed the contract. So that was the first time it's wow, things have changed a little bit.
Do you know when it'll hit you? When you get the first check.
That's what I've been told too. We'll see, but I'm sure tomorrow is going to be something out of this world, so I'm not sure what to expect, but I'm just going to go into it and have a lot of fun.
Well, it's been a real pleasure, and this will be real interesting. I really do appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time.
Honestly, extremely humble kid, obviously a kid of faith. But I thought that quote about from his dad that, son,
great.
You're not that good. God got you on this team.
That's pretty
Come
good.
on. Whatever your thoughts are on that, I thought that was absolutely fantastic. But no,
I think those are the kind of guys you root for.
Yes.
And yet he's under a microscope, and he could go out and, again, he pitched great in March. Now he comes out and he's pitching in April against the Astros or at Coors Field. Or
when a guy's seen him the fourth time,
right,
and there's film on him.
Right. So who knows what's going to happen? But he does sound like the kind of guy that you want to root for to be a good player and to be part of this team. And we'll find. That's the great thing about baseball. They play so many games that it's really hard to bluff your way through stuff. And I think people now, and especially this day and age, get so wrapped up in instant takes. And it happens, as you know, it happened in football. A quarterback comes out and he plays one bad game and he's a stiff. And in baseball, it's the same thing. Twitter is terrible for baseball. You want to have this instant reaction to everything in baseball. Gosh. Baseball is a long season. It just keeps going and going. And you can't, just because a guy is good in April or even April and May, we may come back and we'd be talking about this guy in August and it'll be like, wow, that guy was terrible. Why did anybody even believe in that guy?
Craig Stammen. last April.
Right.
What did Twitter say about Trevor Hoffman his first month? Oh, wait, there wasn't Twitter, but he was
but
terrible.
you know what they would have said about Trevor Hoffman back then. And you know what? Sometimes people are right. Sometimes people come out and they're terrible, and they're always going to be terrible. But I think you have to give people a chance. You have to see. I remember hearing when I used to be out covering the Padres for, especially at home, I think it was Bud Black used to talk about you got to see at least 100 at-bats before you can judge anything. I don't know what the rule is in terms of innings in pitchers, but let's see what some of these guys do over the first several weeks as opposed to their first at-bat or two and go. I still, you talked about that you don't see them winning more than 81 games. I mean, I would have said that was probably a stretch if Lamet had been healthy. I would say without him, I think, the tops is somewhere in the mid-70s. And,
I wouldn't bet against you.
That would be kind of a realistic goal, is somewhere in the 73, 76 range. We'll see what happens. But again, and this is in something that you wrote that'll be in the Thursday paper and on the website, that it's not just about wins and losses. It's about seeing, and you mentioned earlier, it's about seeing what some of these guys do when the lights are on and the pressure's on, and you're facing guys, like you said, 3-4 times a game and all that stuff. Let's see what happens. But the great thing is I can't wait to see it happen.
Oh.
And I know you're way more excited than even I am.
Here's the deal. Like, everyone kept asking me, right? Hey, are you still enjoying it? Like, if I'm saying no at this point, there's a problem. I made a life decision that was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I've asked you about let's come back and see in August how your pace is. But if you were bad in March, I was really going to be worried.
But what I did start saying about a week or so ago is I'm ready for spring training to be over. I can't wait to keep a book that matters, right, to look at some trends and to really find out what happens, and that's what happens tomorrow. I'm assuming that we're going to get this podcast up today, but Thursday, March 29th against the Brewers, Clayton Richard, and it's Chase Anderson.
It is.
Yeah, I really should have checked that. I should have said that with authority, because that's what you do when you're doing a podcast. Jay Posner, Kevin Acee. Episode 1 of the Hot Lava Podcast, the most fun I've had with you in a while.
That was great. And if people, if anybody has comments or concerns or questions or suggestions, we want to hear. Now, we don't necessarily have to pay attention to them, but we want to hear some feedback. So let us know, and we'll be back. Like I said, be back here at least once a week. We'll definitely do this again before you head out to Houston,
first trip.
We'll try to have fun with it each week.
Right on.